in a way, really tragic to see that Israel has allowed evidence to develop in such a way that these allegations can now be made, and the consequences of them being made, whatever the outcome, when the court makes its decisions, are very serious.
South Africa is accusing Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza in the UN International Court of Justice. More than 23,000 people in Gaza have been killed since Hamas's attack on October the 7th. Nearly 10,000 of them are children. The case also asks that Israel stop its military operations in the region. South Africa's Justice Minister Ronald Lamola outlined the country's genocide case against Israel in The Hague this morning.
Israel continues to exercise control over the airspace, territorial waters, land crossing, water, electricity, and civilian infrastructure, as well as over key government functions. No armed attack on a state territory, no matter how serious, even an attack involving atrocity crimes, can provide any justification for or defense to breaches to the convention.
Later, the Irish barrister Blinny Garrelay, who is advising the South African government, gave this testimony.
The international community continues to fail the Palestinian people, despite the overt, dehumanizing, genocidal rhetoric by Israeli governmental and military officials, matched by the Israeli army's actions on the ground. Despite the horror of the genocide against the Palestinian people being live streamed from Gaza to our mobile phones, computers, and television screens, the first genocide in history where its victims are broadcasting their own destruction in real time in the desperate, so far vain hope that the world might do something.
So Israel, of course, denies the genocide allegations and has promised to defend herself. Joining us now is Sir Geoffrey Nice, KC. He was the lead prosecutor at Slobodan Milosevic's trial in the early noughties and chair of the China Tribunal and the Uyghur Tribunal, which have investigated human rights abuses in China. Welcome to the show, Sir Geoffrey.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on. You've been following the trial all morning. Can you give us an update on what you've heard?
Not much of an update on what was actually in the written pleadings, but it was good to hear them spelt out. There's quite a lot of detail, and you could say it's complicated, but it's probably better to describe it as detailed. At this stage, it's not necessary to be able to prove or for the court to find that genocide has been committed. It's sufficient for them to think that there's an arguable case, and not exactly the term they use, that the evidence would show genocide. But this is not, as I think you outlined, probably anything like a criminal court. This is a court that deals with the obligations of nations, in this case under international law by treaty. The treaty is the Genocide Convention, and that makes it quite clear that any act of genocide is impermissible at any time. It also makes it clear that parties to the convention, those who've ratified it or acceded to it, have a duty under Article 1 of the Convention to act if they have capacity to do something immediately they are aware of genocide occurring or possibly occurring. And so what's very interesting in this particular case is that whereas for the last 70 years, the major powers have never brought an action under Article 1 of the Convention for all sorts of entirely pragmatic, geopolitical or cynical reasons, we've had now two cases, the Gambia in respect of Myanmar and South Africa in respect of Israel, where possible genocide is being brought to this court by another participant member of the Genocide Convention. And that's rather showing that all the other countries, ours and many others, that they should have acted and haven't. So that's quite a good thing. As to the particular application itself, there's something obviously tragic about our finding ourselves in the position where the allegations can be made against Israel, the state in which the Jewish people live, and for whom the Genocide Convention was in a way created, to find them being the subject of such an allegation. The allegation against the state of Israel is that there being a risk that rights under the convention, not to be the subject of genocide, the right to see genocide stopped, and so on and so forth, may be imperiled if what's called provisional measures are not granted, and granted right now. And so what's being asked, amongst other things, is an order from the court that the military activity stops straight away, because unless it stops straight away, the rights of the citizens and all sorts of other rights under the convention may be thwarted now and for the foreseeable future. But as I say, it's in a way really tragic to see that Israel has allowed evidence to develop in such a way that these allegations can now be made, and the consequences of them being made, whatever the outcome, when the court makes its decisions, are very serious.
When you talk about the consequences being serious, what actually, if there is an order from the court, how on earth can it be enforced?
It can't be enforced. The court doesn't have power to enforce. I suppose there are two different kinds of consequence, in my view. Dealing first with the most obvious one, if an order is made and Israel obeys it, then that's fine, and we can move on towards ceasefires and maybe resolution or broader resolution of the problem. If Israel doesn't comply with the order, that may mean that other countries, for example, the United States of America, may have to reconsider whether it should carry on arming Israel, because if it does, then it's arming a country that's acting in breach of international law as decided by the world's highest court. What would be the effect of that? The effect of that could be one way or the other. It could shorten the conflict, or it might lengthen it, but it would be quite likely to change it. Might an order that wasn't recognized by Israel, the state of Israel, might that lead to America, which clearly has the greatest possible influence over Israel, being even firmer in its expression of opinions of what Israel should and should not do? That could be, I suppose, quite beneficial. So the outcome of any order, if an order is made, is uncertain. We can't be sure, but I suppose in general, we could hope that it will have a good effect, either directly or indirectly. What I think is much more troubling in some ways, but this is a personal view, not really expressed by anyone else, is that if the court moves slowly, step by step, in the direction of making a finding of genocide against the state of Israel, then the restraint on people being critical of Israel and of its occupants, the Jewish people, the restraint may be relaxed when it certainly shouldn't be, but it may be relaxed. And the consequence of that, I think, are not only serious, or could be very serious for the Jewish people. And we've seen some hints of that, more than hints of that already in what happened here very shortly in England, shortly after the 7th and 8th of October, be serious all around the world. And it could have, and I don't want in any sense to encourage this, on the contrary, I wish it to be the reverse, but it could have terrible consequences on the restraint we all know we have to feel, not feel, express, and perform on any form of observations about people simply because of the ethnic or other group that they are. So I think there's all sorts of consequences of this, and it is unfortunate, to put it at its mildest, tragic, to express myself more strongly, that Israel has allowed itself, by its conduct, to have allowed a plausible case to be raised at the International Court of Justice against it.